Now, I'm sure you've been hearing a little bit about the Shunem home in recent weeks. But I think there's someone that you know fairly well who's sort of been out there, isn't there? Yeah? In fact, I think back today?
Hopefully.
Yeah? Sort of en route somewhere as we speak.
Yeah.
Right?
2.5 hours from landing.
Right, okay, good. So, and I'm sure she sort of kept you informed. And a bit later on, there was a sort of letter in the Jarvis Avenue News from, my mind gone blank, Sarah. I wanted to say Rachel, I knew it wasn't Rachel, from Sarah Price, who's also been there. So I haven't actually read that either, but I have a copy of it. So we'll have a look at that later on. Okay. So India. India's quite a big place. Okay. Now this is Hyderabad. It's in a place province called.
Andhra Pradesh.
Thank you. Carry on.
You sit down.
Perhaps I ought to be doing the dementia one instead. A state called Andhra Pradesh, and 12 years or so ago, 13 years ago, when Christa and I first went out there, Christy was asked to go and speak at a sisters' conference, so I tagged along and sort of got involved in a Bible school while I was there. And we were told that in the Andhra Pradesh region, they speak a sort of minority language called Telugu. And it's a minority language, only about 80 million people speak it. But when you consider there are about upwards of 1 billion people in India, it is a minority language. Minority means something quite different. Okay, and that's the language they mainly speak. So that's Hyderabad. Down here, Bangalore, that's where a lot of the work has been done. They used to have the office, which closed down. About 3 years ago, the office closed down, but there's still a fairly large ecclesia in Bangalore, still a lot of work going on there. And there are ecclesias down over there in Visakhapatnam, places called Kadiam and so on. There's quite a lot of work going on. In fact, some pictures of a place called Kadiam a bit later on as well. And this is where Brother Tim Galbraith moved to when he married, Sarah, Galbraith, because she's married to him. And it was her mother who was largely instrumental in starting Moinabad, the orphanage. And Sarah had an ambition. She wanted to do something for children, particularly for lepers, and the old people as well. And she sort of had this vision. She went to visit. There was an old brother who was in hospital, and she went to visit him. And just across the way from the hospital was a school and children playing. She thought, wouldn't it be nice if we could have a home where we have some elderly brethren and sisters and children, because the old people loved watching the children. And she sort of had this dream of starting something. And rather foolishly mentioned this to Colin Edwards on one of his visits there, and he said, well, do something about it. So she sort of said, well, okay. He said, I will help finance it if you sort of start it. So basically, back 15 years ago now, it started with just one old woman who actually they used to pass on the way to the meeting room from where they used to live. The meeting, when it was actually in Hyderabad town centre, it's since moved out. And they used to pass this old woman who used to be on the street. She lived under a polythene sheet, and every time they passed they gave her some food or whatever it was, and she was their first old person. And a little girl who was 4 years old called Mary, whose parent, or surviving parent, was a leper. And it started with those two and I think one other. and gradually it moved from there. Until we get Shunem as it is now. Now we've been to Hyderabad quite a number of times now, because having been there, and because we were both teachers for many years, and then of course we're involved in the CCH with the elderly people, they sort of latched onto us and said, you might be useful to us. So we've sort of been involved ever since. So we've been to Hyderabad. Anyone here ever been to Hyderabad? Well, I'll give you a little bit of a taster of what it's like in Hyderabad. We went to visit, on one of our visits a couple of years ago, went to Hyderabad, and we went to visit some of the schools where the children were. And while I was waiting, I had a camera, it had a video part on it. So I thought, I just sort of took a few minutes of a corner, not the absolute centre, of a corner. Sometimes they work and sometimes people stop. But a lot of places aren't, and people just walk across and it all works. And yeah, there are accidents, but surprisingly few. Actually, there are a lot. We've travelled around quite a lot in various places, Bible schools and so on, and we used to travel with a brother, now married and got children. Baby Chan, his name is, and we used to talk about his magic finger. Because you're driving down this fairly narrow road, and coming toward you are 3 trucks, and you're thinking, we ought to be moving. And he'd sort of go like that, and the trucks, magic, they just move. They part the way, usually. It's amazing. Okay, so it started then with in a house with just a couple of people. And then it's grown to this. They bought this land at Kismatpur area, which is about 15 kilometres to the north of Hyderabad itself. Let's say it's 15 kilometres to the north. Hyderabad's sort of growing to meet it. Because when we first went, it was empty. It's not as empty as all that now. Even since then, it's been built up. The sort of city beginning to sort it up, and they built this home. No, don't mind pressing that; it doesn't work from that maybe. Okay, I got this. This is not actually Shunem home. I got this sort of daily routine from one of the other schools. I just found that, and I thought, well, children in this country seem to think, I speak as a teacher. Ex-teacher, seem to think they're hard done to. How's this for a day? 5:15 reveille. All right. and then 5:30 to 6:30 physical, PT, physical training, and then an hour of study from 7:15. All right. This is the morning, by the way. All right, not the evening. Newspaper reading 8:15. Then the day scholars join at 8:30 because those are the borders. And then you have assembly, then breakfast and so on, and it goes right through till about 7:45 to 9 o'clock studies and so on. They have long working days. Now Shunem's not quite the same as that, but we do have morning prayers at 6:30, is it?
6.
Oh, 6. Seems we have morning prayers at 6, so the kids get up at about 5:30, morning prayers at 6 o'clock, and of course when we're there we feel we have to be there. In fact, usually I'm taking them when I'm there. So morning prayers at 6 o'clock, and it goes through then until the last session. I think the last daily reading is in the evening, 7:30. 7:30. So they do the reading and so on. They do have a long day. They're expected to do some of their own washing and so on. Quite a lot of hard work involved. About 4 years ago, they built this new block. This was in the building when we were there. It was quite nice, didn't it? It was quite impressive. It's not quite as good as it looks. When you get close-ups of the brickwork and so on, you can actually find that it is falling apart a bit. It's not actually very well built. By their standards, it's well built, not by our standards. I suspect it wouldn't pass building regs in this country. And we have real problems in Shunem with the drainage. I say drainage, or lack of drainage, I should say, really. But it's a real problem. Okay, but it's a nice area. It's nicely done, nice laid out. They've got plenty of plants and so on. Some of the kids. She was 4. Remember her name? Never remember her name. She, very bright girl. Within 3 minutes of making my acquaintance.
It's not her.
Oh.
It's the next one.
Next one. Oh, okay. Pick it up then. The moment about 85, Jess will have up-to-date figures when she comes back, because I've not heard for a few weeks now. About 85 children. When we first went there, sort of 50 was the limit. Trouble is, elastic, because Sarah does have a problem saying no, and that's not a criticism, because it is difficult. Because basically the children are, there are some ground rules, some conditions on which they're allowed to go. It is not a home in the sense that they're taken away from their families, although some of them make their homes there because the families die. Mary, for example, the very first one, is now an orphan. She's now about 20 years old. She's now a sister in Christ, but it's her home. But the idea is not to take them from their families. The idea is they go back and visit their families, and they will go back home, and many of them do go back home. So it's not an orphanage like Moynabad. The idea is that their family, at least one of their parents or who's looking after them, has to be a leper, because it's for those who are lepers. Trouble with being leper, and we're all familiar with the biblical leprosy. The leprosy is in India now is probably not the same as biblical leprosy. It's not nearly as contagious as biblical leprosy. It is contagious, but it's not massively so. About 30% of people have 70% of people have a natural immunity. The other 30% may get it, but it tends to affect those who have got very poor diet, poor sanitary conditions, and so on. Right? So it affects the poorest. And it's easily curable with antibiotics. It's not even very expensive. But there are several million lepers in India, and they don't have a national health system, so most lepers don't get treatment. So the condition that children are accepted is that if their family accept treatment. So they also provide treatment. And they work with the doctor, who's actually a fourth generation. He is a Christian, he's not Christadelphian, but he's fourth generation. His father, his grandfather and his great-grandfather were doctors who also work with lepers. Lovely chap, young chap, lovely chap. I've spoken to him, we've been out with him when he's been out in the streets, because he goes out in the streets every week to actually go and visit the lepers and give them the antibiotics, the treatment. And what Tim and Sarah and the others do in the ecclesia, they actually provide food for the lepers, because the trouble is they're beggars. Most of the lepers are beggars, because if you're a leper, I remember going out, there's also a leprosy rehabilitation centre, again about 15 kilometres away from there. And I was talking through a translator with some of those, and one was saying, well, I can't go home because I'm dead. As far as the family are concerned, they're dead. And that is the situation, but not all of them, but for a lot of people. That you've got leprosy, you're dead. Even if you're cured, you're dead. They can't go back home. So if you have a home, if you have a job, you've lost it. So there's no state aid. So basically, all they can do is beg. So what tends to happen is they move to the big cities, like Hyderabad, like Bangalore, obviously like places like Calcutta and so on. That's why, and they tend there to, there are one or two areas where they provide housing for them, but many of them live on the streets. And you can imagine that the ones in close contact are the ones that are more likely to get the leprosy. Say, it's not highly contagious, but if you're in constant daily contact with them, then you're quite likely, and especially if your diet is poor, and if you're a beggar on the street, your diet isn't brilliant, and so they're the ones who are going to get it. It's the children, hence the idea of giving them somewhere. And so the condition is, because we want them to go back to their families, we want the family to visit, so the family have to agree to have the cure. But they may still have nowhere to live, but sometimes they are able to get somewhere to live, and the children go back and stay with them, which is good when that can happen. And the other thing, of course, is for these children, if they're children of lepers and they're usually the lower caste, the caste system was outlawed in India decades ago. When I say outlawed, officially, it's still there. They don't call it that, but it is still there. And very much what would once have been the untouchables, are still almost untouchable in many areas. It is changing, but very slowly. And we have a number of our brethren and sisters who have been higher caste, and many of the brothers and sisters, and there are well over 1,000, about 1,500 brethren and sisters in India, many of them, most of them come from the lower caste, and we have brothers and sisters from the higher caste, the higher classes, who have been ostracised by their friends, in inverted commas, because they're mixing with low class people. Let's face it, we've had our own caste system in this country as well, so we can't throw stones at these people, but it is very much like that. It's still there. So these children, even if their parents are cured, what future are they going to have? Well, at least by being them here, providing them an education, we're also providing them a future. And of course, we are preaching to them as well. And at least 5 have actually been baptized. You'll see 4 baptism slides later on. And I was talking to Rachel Shepherd, thank you. I'm good at this. Talking to Rachel Shepherd, who went out over the New Year period, and there was another young man, she couldn't remember his name, I think it's Michael, but she didn't know that he was baptised, he was a real tearaway, if it's him. He was a real tearaway, but then he left because he'd been educated. Because he spoke English, he'd been educated, he got quite a good job. And he was still sort of coming back because he came to the Bible school when I was there last year. And I think he's the one who's now been baptised. So it is having that effect. They do a Sunday school as well. would you believe, every Sunday. We'll come back to that in a moment. So there's lots of preaching going on. That's in one of the upstairs rooms. I think, isn't that?
Yeah, that's good.
She's the little girl that within about 3 minutes learned how to take my watch off. I nearly lost it several times, a bright thing. We've seen a number of these children grow up. This is actually the Sunday school. They started a Sunday school quite some time, about 3 or 4 years ago now, for children in the nearby villages. And they send buses out to bring them in. And they have something like about 200, it varies from week to week, but up to 200 people coming. They bring them in, they give them Sunday school, they give them some food, they give them breakfast, which helps. And as you can see, there are a lot of them there, and they break them down into groups. On this particular occasion, Christine was supposed to be taking the littlest group, and she skied them out for some reason. I ended up taking them. I love that age group. I do, but not to teach them. But you can tell what she's like, can't you? Just tell what she's like. Real monkey. That's them doing their Bible readings. I'll go through these fairly quickly. There she is again. That's the Sunday school. This is getting ready for school in the morning. In recent times, they've actually started the school. Tim and Sarah have moved out of the centre of town. They bought a plot of land only about half a mile away from Shunem home. And then about 3 years ago, they actually built a house there, and they built a block which they're using. We have the Bible schools there now, for example, but also they started a school there for the very little ones, Missonary.
Where Jess has been teaching.
Sorry?
That's where Jess has been teaching.
And that's where Jess has been teaching. So she'll have the up to date. Last time I was there, they were actually using the block. We used it for the Bible school, but it wasn't quite finished. For example, they were still finishing the toilets the day before we were due to start, and they never actually got around to hanging the doors while we were there. I hope they've done it since. It was all a bit last minute, because Tim was saying, well, you need to get it funded, you need to get hold of someone to come and do it. Well, it didn't quite happen. That's the way it is in India. But the C3 it's called, that's where they go, the little one. And yeah, that's what Jess had been doing, among other things. Okay. And one of the things that happens in the morning is when we're there, they usually want us to help them with the reading. And the old one of the things that, if you think about it, and we've discussed it with Sarah and Tim quite a lot, these children come from a background where they're beggars. Where it's get what they can when they can. And one of the things that Sarah and the others are trying to do is instill with them a caring attitude for each other. It's not just get what you can for yourself, it's helping each other. And it can be quite difficult because it's so alien to what they've been brought up with for a long time, where you get what you can when you can, because if you don't, you won't have anything. Because that's what it can be like. But the older ones do actually look after the young ones very well, and the older ones will help the younger ones with their reading. And we've heard quite a lot of the reading while we've been there, and the books they're using are absolutely appalling. in the school. I mean, I didn't understand it, and I was an English teacher. You wouldn't believe that, would you? But I was. But they're really keen to learn, and I mean, learning English does help them a lot. Single file. How many seats do you think are on that bus?
94.
Close, yeah, 94. Yeah. Well, we certainly had 60 on that bus. I know, I've been on it. Talk about health and safety, doesn't apply. And they use the bus to go out to Bible schools and so on all over the place. The trouble is, if I'm there taking pictures, it does tend to distract them, doesn't it? This actually, I mentioned Cadium, place at Cadium. While you were all milling around earlier, I had some music playing. They were actually Christadelphian hymns. You might not have recognised them because most of them are not in our Christadelphian hymn book, but they were actually Christadelphian singing Christadelphian hymns, India style, right? Written in India. In fact, you may recognise. Any of you know Brother Andrew Johnson? Any of you know Andrew Johnson? Yeah, okay. Not that Andrew Johnson. There's a Brother Andrew Johnson in India, in Cadium, who's a musician, who was actually playing. Right? So, he and his wife started an orphanage in Cadium some time ago, and they have, when we were there last, I think they've now got about 35 people in this orphanage. My up-to-date figures say when we were there they had 19. And this was preparing breakfast, which looked to me like parota. Yeah. I'm good at this. I like the parota. I love the parota. So we went to stay with them. This actually back in Shunem, actually breakfast time. I'm constantly staggered about how much these little kids, they eat every day a plate full of rice that's bigger than themselves. You know, space-time does not mean the same. Their insides are bigger than their outsides. That's the only explanation I can give for it. I can't, never could eat the amount they stuff down there, and they stay slim, whereas I don't. And actually we've noticed the diet improve over the years as we've been going. They actually get a very good, well-balanced diet now, plenty of fruit and vegetables. But obviously rice plays a fairly big part. And I love Indian food. I must confess that curry for breakfast is not my favourite. But what is it we have for breakfast sometimes? Doses. I do like the doses.
Bacon and eggs.
Yeah. Sorry?
Bacon and eggs.
I like bacon and eggs as well. Don't often have bacon and egg out there. But yeah, masala dosa, it is very nice. But you know, it is nice to come back and just have a piece of toast sometimes. But I do like the Indian food. Okay, this is. They also have the elderly people. And it's nice because the older people look after the children, and the children mix with the older people. And there was one of the old ladies there, an old sister in fact, Pauline, who actually used to be a teacher, and she used to help them a lot. She's now a bit too elderly to do so. She actually used to help them a lot with their homework. She's very frail now. Had a fall last time I was there. Okay. But they do the daily readings, and most of the elderly people, most of them are not Christadelphians, most of them come. Even the Hindus and Muslims do tend to come. They don't have to, but they do tend to. So we do the readings every morning with them. That's where the washing is done, in the outside, washing the dishes and other things as well. What's that? The Dobie Waller. That's the Dobie. Come on, what's Dobie? Washing. Dobie's washing. Come on, keep up. A lot of the washing is done, by the staff and some of the children, but they do send out these auto rickshaws are everywhere. They're ubiquitous. The little two-stroke engines, very nippy. They can roll over quite easily, but they can be righted quite easily as well, and they just go on and on. We've travelled in quite a lot. And they take the washing away and hopefully they bring it back. And that's one member of staff and one of the elderly residents helping with preparation, which is good. The little children have a sleep every afternoon. Ish. They're supposed to have a sleep every afternoon. It's amazing. Many of them over there seem to have the capacity they can just go to sleep at the drop of a hat, or even without a hat. There's a brother who has been with us several times, translating for us. And I tell you, he can be asleep and snoring within 5 seconds in any circumstance. We're trying, you're on a train with 72 people in a train overnight, and the snoring is actually quite amazing. The amount of, in a confined space, there are 2 people awake, us 2, and everyone else. There's quite, I'm going to say harmonious, but it isn't. The noise is quite tremendous, but he can, he'll lie down on a narrow 2-inch wide concrete bench that's about half the length of his body, and he'll curl up on it and he'll be asleep and snore within 5 seconds. How does he do it? I wish I had the secret. And these kids can as well, especially how I'm speaking. I just go off. Again, Sunday school again. He'd been playing with some sticks. He and another boy who just come back from hospital, I think, hadn't he? Sad little waif. What?
German measles.
German measles. That's what. Had German measles. Actually, probably when that was taken, had German measles. I got a spotty camel. They do like music. When you have a Bible school out there, tend to be a bit like this in afternoon as well. You've got to have a talent evening. And I think our second visit there, we actually had to judge one of these. It was that was fun, trying to judge this. It's just completely different music. It's not the sort of music we tend to have an ear for. But actually, some of them have got really good voices. Unfortunately, it's not always not always the ones that want to sing. Have you noticed that? It's the ones sometimes with the not so good voices who want to do the singing. But they do love singing. They love music. Remember I mentioned Mary? The very first, that's Mary. Right? When she first went, she wasn't an orphan. She is an orphan now, and that was taken about two years ago, 2011, so 2.5 years ago now. A lovely girl. and she'd been there since she was 4 years old, since it started. That's Genevieve. Okay, that's Genevieve. This is Sister Sarah Galbraith, and that's Genevieve and Mary. Remember her name? No, I can't. Genevieve works. Genevieve is a product of the Moynabad home. She came through the Moynabad orphanage, and then she's been working at Shunem, I think, since it started with Sarah. One of the things we noticed, many of the young people who come through the Moynabad home have actually got involved with Shunem home and with other things as well. They've turned out really, not all of them, but many of them turned out really nice young people, and many of them are baptized as well. Now this is Jyoti, and this is Mary, her sister. When we first went to, in the early days, when we first went to Shunem, Mary was actually one of the children at the home, along with her sister Jyoti, and that's their cousin whose name I can never remember. Sadly, she got it from her family, her parents, HIV, and she was not allowed to stay. Government regulations, she was not allowed to stay at Shunem. She had to go to a special home, a special place where they look after people with HIV. And so Jyoti's still in Shunem, but Mary isn't. So we actually took Jyoti to Sarah, Chris and I, and the cousin took Jyoti to see Mary. And this was actually at the leprosy place, the HIV place, the home. It actually was a very well run place. I mean, the matron there was very good, showed us all round, almost treated us as though we were like doctors. They told us anything. And talk about confidentiality doesn't apply, you know. This was all medication, talked about how it was all laid out and what was done for all children, and they really do a good job. And this was the dormitories, quite nice dormitories by their standards. Notice with Winnie the Pooh, right? If they've got Winnie the Pooh, they've got to be good, I think. High standards. Okay, so that was there, and very sad because, of course, unless they do find a cure, it may well be that she will develop full-blown AIDS. Although things have improved a lot. It's not necessarily so now. This was out working with the lepers. We went out with them in the streets, and that's Tim Galbraith, giving them the bags of rice and so on, their daily food. Because if they're going to come and have the treatment, well, they won't be able to beg. Right? So they actually say, if you come and have your treatment, we'll give you the food for the day, and therefore they don't need to beg for that day anyway. Otherwise, they probably wouldn't come, because if they come, they won't be able to get food for the day. So that was taken out at the Leprosy Rehabilitation Centre, and they're all cured now. They've had the treatment. They're all cured, but they've nowhere to go, which is why they're there. And that's taken from where the Leprosy Rehabilitation Centre is. It had to be built miles from anywhere. Because, well, I mean, let's face it, if someone wanted to build a leprosy centre in your street, how would you feel about that? Don't answer. I suspect we would not really be very happy about it. We'd be worried about it. So you can understand that actually to get permission to build it, they had to build it miles from anywhere. Again, the buildings are encroaching. So they're actually going to get, people are moving close to them, which is fair enough. That's a local bus. That's not true. Quite. Just some shots. that first sort of little video clip at the beginning gave you an idea of the noise. It's a noisy, loud, vibrant place. I love it, but it's also it's just so colourful, and the smells. I love it because it is so lively, no matter where you go, and it's just fascinating, the mixture of the old and the new. There's so many things going on, and you see this sort of thing all the time. You know, the markets, the bicycles with bananas and everything, the garlands which we get given every time we go there. We buy them in the street. I don't know about it. Never met before in my life. And of course, and the shrines everywhere. You know, because Hinduism is the main religion there. And there are shrines all over the place. And again, you see a mixture of, you know, little huts like that next to great big, quite palatial houses. The mixture of the poor and the rich together is quite something. Again, you get the same sort of thing in Africa very often. High tech. It's amazing. Oh. And you see people, again, you see the same thing in Africa. They just put crocodile clips and they plug it into the... Amazing. And yet, you know, in Hyderabad, they've got one of the most sophisticated and advanced hospitals, more advanced and more sophisticated than anything we've got in this country. NHS send people over there to get operated on. Right? You've got this tremendous mix of really high-tech, high-qualified stuff, and you get things like this. Yeah, health and safety, yeah. Yeah. Oh look, more cows. They are sacred, of course. I've never seen chickens that colour. I think they've been dusted with saffron. A bit scrawny. Huh? Sorry?
Are they dead?
And for their sakes, I hope they are. If they weren't then, they are now. What do you think you're having for food later then? What are they doing?
Washing.
They're washing, yes. You're not beating them over there. They're washing. That's right. There's an interesting decoration for the wall. Anyone fancy trying that decoration in their walls? Anyone actually know what that decoration is?
Honeycomb?
Close, but no cigar. In fact, no, you're miles away.
No. Yeah, thank you.
And I mean miles away.
Yeah, dung.
It's actually dung. Yes, well done. It's actually dung, which they dry, and you can actually see some have fallen down. All right? It's actually slap it on the wall to dry there. But it's used for fuel. All right? But you know, you paint it nice. The wall decorations. I don't know why we don't do this sort of thing. But we don't have the cattle like they have. I just like that tree.
Beautiful.
And again, that's just a picture in the street. You've seen that before. This was at a Bible school. They often do it outside in the Shamiana. You know, they're called the Shamiana, these things. Last time I was there, I had Bible school. It so happened, and I was doing my subject was the tabernacle. And it just so happened this Shamiana was about exactly the same size as the tabernacle. It was ever nice of them to do that for me. Really quite useful. I told you they could go to sleep, didn't I? In me speaking. Lois. Sister Lois. With her children, married to Tage. Remember, I told you about the brother who could fall asleep anywhere. His name is Dave, and his son Tage. Lovely brother, married to this Canadian sister Lois. Two lovely children.
One, actually.
They've got another one, I think.
Yeah, but that's not it.
No, that's not it. But that's their child. They've now got another. They've got two children now. So this was at a Bible school, which was, you know, held in the grounds there at Shunem. you don't just do Bible schools, you do discussions in between and all sorts of stuff. And this was a baptism. This is the pool at Shunem.
Not at Shunem, at Moynabad.
Sorry. Oh, sorry, yes, it's at Moynabad, isn't it? Yeah. That is Tage, in fact, Brother Tage. Talked about. From Shamyar at Bible School. That's Brother Matthews, who actually looks after the Moynabad home. He's been there for, I think, well, certainly as long as we've known. If you ask him how many children he's got a lot of children, because all the children that have ever been at Moynabad are his children. They love singing. They love singing. And those are some of the
Moynabad.
Moynabadians, the present Moynabadians doing their talent. Talent evening. Back there. That is actually at Cadium. Remember I talked about the orphanage at Cadium, and those are the children doing the Bible readings there. And that is Brother Andrew Johnson, just hiding behind his wife. It takes quite a long time to do the hair in the morning, for the girls, not for the boys. And they also help run a little school there, and that was at the school. And that was a Canadian sister. Canadian sister we took to spend a few days there. And we took some books as well. And they were going home, to visit family end of term. There are notices that say no more than 3 people. But mathematics, is highly adaptable, isn't it? You can always stretch it a little further. And that's Sister Divya. She was one of the 4 who were baptised at the time from Shunem home. That's Divya, Sister Divya. And Sister Padma, again from Shunem. And Brother Robert Kieran. He's a lovely brother. In fact, he did some of the translation for us at the last Bible school on that. He's a really lovely lad. Really lovely lad. He's always doing things for people, always involved with things. And that's Brother Praveen. Those were the first 4 from Shunem to come through Shunem were baptised. Can't remember her name.
These are the little ones at the school where
that
Jess
was
has
the
been.
C3, the school which is now where Jess has been. That's Mary, and that's Jyoti, and that's Brother. He translated for me when I was down at Bible school. Lovely, gentle brother, really good English. Now very frail. He and his wife live in Shunem, and he's really quite frail now. When I was there, he was quite frail, and that was about 18 months ago. So lovely brother, lovely couple, he and his wife. They just got the new bags. I love the colourful dresses. I mean, it just won't work. You just talk about colour matching. They wear bright colours. Over here, Abbey accused, you can't wear that, it clashes. But they do it, and it works. That's Pablo Kieran again. See what I mean? Yeah. last year they had a month out there. About 10 people went out there doing a lot of maintenance and repair work. So they repaired some of it, but we took some pictures to show what needed to be done. You can see how the brick worked. And actually the new block, in some ways, is worse than the old block. Yeah. Really in some bad condition. But most of that has now been repaired and done. Windows and so on. Right, we finished that time.
It says there, look, at the bottom here, look, at last but not least, we have a long letter from Sister Sarah Price. And it says, I'll read it to you because you can't see the text because it's too small. Greetings from Australia. Well, my time in India has come to an end, and I'm pleased to report I've arrived safely in Adelaide. My 6 months at the Shunem home seemed to pass very quickly, and I thoroughly enjoyed my time there. It seemed to get busier and busier as I took on more responsibilities. So despite it being very sad saying goodbye, I was definitely ready for a breather. The weather was getting unbearably hot towards the end, particularly at night, so I've been thankful for the cooler climates of Australian autumn. I really settled into Indian life as time progressed, and while I don't think I've ever understood the culture in its entirety, the lifestyle suited me well. I'm thankful to report a sister from Texas arrived a couple of weeks before I left, so she'd been able to take over teaching my class. I became more confident with the teaching and assistance from Sister Jess Ridgway of Rugby, who is qualified teacher, was of a great benefit to me. Despite that, I definitely feel I'm still more suited to health care, where I can deal with one patient at a time and devote my full attention to them. The children at Shunem never cease to amaze me with their love for God and Jesus, and for the volunteers. On a number of occasions I was put in my place by the children in my class. I would often give an example of how to use a particular word by making up a sentence, and if it didn't have a spiritual flavour, I'd usually be shown up by one of the children who made up far better sentence, including God, Jesus, or the kingdom. Moments like that usually silence me and brings tears to my eyes just thinking about it. When I left Shunem, the children showered me with letters of love and thanks, and many of them said they were looking forward to seeing me in the kingdom. They also put on a beautiful and totally unexpected presentation of dance, songs and farewell greetings. It was very touching to begin the presentation. Children from Nithsdale Learning Centre, and in brackets the Shunem School, stood up and sang, "Soon and very soon we're going to see the King," a song I learnt in South Africa and taught to them. It was precious to watch them singing, and I know they really believed every word. And then she goes on to talk about Adelaide. That's Sister Sarah Price.
Okay, so that's as hot from the press. Right, I'm going to stop there, and Christine's going to, I think, give a demonstration of how not to put a sari, how to put a sari on.
Try.